So the way the activity is going to work is you are going to be hired as employees for this tennis ball producing business. Okay, and don't worry, you will be compensated. I can't give you cash though, but I've got candy. So if you end up working for me, I'll give you some candy, some high chews. All right, but this is how your work day looks if you are an employee of the tennis ball producing company. In order to produce a tennis ball, you get a tennis ball from this basket right here, and you place it very carefully in this box right here. If you are able to successfully do that without dropping the tennis ball, without throwing the tennis ball, like if you do this, that's not going to count. You have damaged the tennis ball. Look at how fragile this thing is. Okay? But that's not going to count either. If you're in the process of moving it and you happen to drop it, oh no, it won't count. You've damaged the tennis ball. Okay? But the idea is you're going to try and produce as many of these tennis balls as you can. And I'm going to start off by hiring one worker. And that first worker is going to be all alone, moving these tennis balls to the box. Okay? In terms of the rules for your work day, you have to follow a couple key regulations. Right? Number one, you can only hold one at a time. Right? I don't trust my employees enough to be able to hold 2 tennis balls at a time. This, illegal. Right? You're breaking the law. You're breaking our policies here. You can't do that. You can only hold one at a time. Second, you will probably notice that there was a track on this part of the classroom. That track represents the fixed size of our factory, which means you can't do some weird magic where you go outside of the track and leave the factory and happen to come back in. That's not going to work either, right? You are limited by the size of the factory. It is fixed. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of broke, so I can't afford to increase the size of the factory at this time. All right, this is all we've got. All right, so again, just to reiterate the rules, if you are an employee of my factory, you cannot ever leave the track. You can only hold 1 tennis ball at a time. If you drop it, if you throw it, or if you place it in the box in such a way where I can hear like that, that's a damaged good. Place it carefully, all right? Like this sound, this is okay. That means it's safe. But anytime I hear this, that's not good, all right? So the way it's gonna work is I'm gonna hire an employee. They are going to work for 20 seconds, and we'll see how many tennis balls that they can produce in those 20 seconds. After that, we'll fill out the table, and then we'll hire an additional worker. And we'll see how hiring more workers causes us to produce more product, and we'll try and pay attention to the patterns of what's happening to the amount being produced. And again, you will be compensated in candy. So in case you want to be an employee of this company, just know that there is a reward at the end of the full work days. All right, so the question is, who wants to be our first employee? Oh, okay, so Dorothy, you have a question.
Can we make innovations to the factory, like innovations to speed up the process?
So what do you mean by innovations to speed up the process?
Well, it has to be an innovation. It's like something unique that falls within the rules.
Something that falls within the rules, I would say yes. I mean, it's possible as long as you're not doing anything weird. Like if I see an innovate, like I don't know what you're talking about yet, but if I see something weird going on, I might have to step in and be like, that's illegal. You can't do that. But yes, it is possible to think potentially in ways where you can interact with employees that might make you more efficient. Okay? Yeah.
So you only have to hold one.
Huh?
You only have to hold one, right?
You can only hold one at a time and you can't throw it.
Okay.
Yeah. So like if there's multiple employees, you're gonna have to hand them off. You can't throw it from one employee to the next. Yeah, Callie. I mean, you can move quickly. Like if you want to, you can do a little bit of like sprinting, agile. Like if those of you are athletes, you can do a little bit of that shuttle run sort of stuff. So yeah, you can do that, right? And so I'm gonna hire my first employee. The rest of you, if you're not able to join the fun, you get to be the managers, which means you get to yell at your employee when they're not doing something right, as is typical of managers. Okay, but you can also give them advice. Right? You can let them know how they might be doing things more efficiently. All right, so the time has come. Employee number 1, who are you going to be? Oh, it's Dilsher or Ford. Dilsher, you're close to the front, so we'll go ahead and pick you. You'll be employee number 1. All right. So you're going to have a 20-second work day. Do not start picking stuff up until after I have given you the signal, and you will have 20 seconds. Remember, you can only hold one at a time. Stay within the confines. Place it carefully. All right? 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, Dilsher's moving very deliberately. All right, there's 1. You can move a little faster than that, just so you know. All right, that's 2. Can you get the third one in by the end? No. All right, so that's only 2. All right, so very good. You can put that back and move the other balls back as well. So on your table, what I want you to do is point out how many workers we had. We only had the 1 worker. How much did they produce? 2. Now we've got some terms here that are familiar and one that might be a little bit unfamiliar. First, marginal. What does, and Dilsher, you're going to be working all day, so don't get too comfortable, right? All right, so marginal. What does it mean when we're looking at the marginal of something, the marginal of anything? Yeah,
Would it
Anish.
be 2, similar to like the marginal cost or marginal benefit kind of stuff?
Yes, so you're correct. The marginal is going to be 2 because the marginal is the additional that we get from something. So to answer that question, what is the formula for marginal tennis balls? Well, the formula here is going to be the change in our output. In other words, how much more stuff did we pump out? Divided by the change in the number of workers that we have. Well, we had 1 more worker, and our output increased by 2. So again, the way that's going to look is that's going to just be 2. Now the other one that we haven't seen yet, but average is not too bad to calculate, is our average product. So the definition of average product is basically the product per worker. How much does each worker on average generate for us? The formula here is also relatively simple, right? You take your total product or your total output and you divide it by the number of workers that you have. Total output divided by workers, or specifically number of workers. So on average, we have 2 divided by 1, which gives us an average product of 2. Okay, the math is not too bad here. On average, Dilsher was able to make us 2. All right, we'll be using that as we add more workers to our production line. All right, so Dilsher, you ready to go for workday number 2? All right, he's ready. We need 1 more employee to join. And Ford, actually, since Ford, you were there, go ahead, Ford, you can come up. You're the second one to volunteer. All right, so first off, employees. Do you have any strategy that you would like to follow to increase your production? Okay. Managers, is there anything you would like to say to your employees to micromanage them into doing a better job? What do you think? Yeah, Reza? They're not allowed to throw, right? You can only hand off. So I shouldn't see a ball flying in the air. It should be only handed off. Yeah, Leia Devocio.
You can walk a little faster.
You can walk a little bit faster. Yeah. So,
Someone has made an innovation to the tennis ball producing process and has shortened the factory.
we cannot shorten the factory, unfortunately. Again, the factory owner's broke. We can't do those sort of innovations. We got to sell some tennis balls first. All right. So you now have your marching orders. I'll give you the countdown again. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, not bad. We got in 5 this time, so go ahead and return those tennis balls to the basket. We now have a total product of 5. So with 2 workers, we produce 5. What is our marginal product now? 3. Good. What is the average product of these workers? 2.5. All right. Would you say that the workers are getting a little bit more efficient overall? I would say yeah. Like they've improved a little bit because look at their marginal product. It's gone up. Let's see how much better we can do when we add a third worker. All right, so you two, you're still up, but we need a third worker now. And Siddharth, go ahead. Since you're the one that was preaching for innovation, let's put you on the production line and see if you can innovate now. I'll give you a chance to talk through. What are you planning on doing now?
Let's just hand it off to each other.
Okay, you're going to hand it off to each other. Managers.
Oh wait, only 4 can switch the pusher so the ball comes a little faster.
All right, and they're changing up the production line order a little bit as well. Yeah, Lady Lucia.
Can they move the boxes?
The boxes are fixed in space.
No.
All right. So we have 3 workers now. Let's see if these 3 workers can potentially do a little bit better. All right, your workday begins in 3, 2, 1, go. Those balls are going really softly. Like it's amazing how much care is being exercised. All right, that's it. That's time. Very good. I see here 3, 6, 9. There are a grand total of 9 produced. So we have 3 workers. We have now produced 9. Our marginal product has improved even further. Our average product is now all the way up to 3. All signs are pointing towards good things for this group. Everything is improving. We're making more at a faster rate, we're making more on average. Things are looking great. All right, 3 employees, you're back. But now we need a 4th. Now we need a 4th. Aditya, I saw that your hand was up last time, so Aditya, you're up now. And yeah, make sure you move those back so we can take a look at our next production day. I know, how exciting, right? All right, I'll let them talk through. Any ideas?
I think it would be better to stay in one.
Are you sure?
Because if you leave the factory,
Yeah, you can't leave the factory. If you leave the factory, it won't
I'm
count.
saying like one person goes back while the other 3 hand off.
Oh, so you have one person moving and the other 3 are stationary. Okay. I mean, whatever you want to do. You're the employees. I'm not going to micromanage you.
or I think for this one we should just pass on.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start the workday in 3, 2, 1, go. The level of concentration here. It's so quiet.
I know.
And that is time. We'll include that last one. I think you got in just in. So 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Uh-oh. Okay, this is good. You're still producing more. But something has happened. Our marginal product has stopped increasing. Which means that Aditya, horrible worker. Our marginal product didn't go up. No, it doesn't mean that. You'll find out why in a little bit. But something has happened here. That the marginal product has now dropped a little bit. You're still producing more overall, but the rate at which we're producing is starting to get a little bit smaller and smaller. That'll probably feel familiar to you. It'll feel like something that we've learned before, but we'll summarize that later on. So if we take a look at our average product, what is that, 2.75? The average product has dropped a little bit. All right, so 4 workers, you're back on the clock. We need a 5th. We need a 5th. All right, let's see here. Sophia, you're up. We'll have you join. All right. And look at that. End of day innovation.
Just run back and forth while the others are handing off.
Align 3 and align 2. Are you sure? No, line there, yeah. Line
Yeah,
there,
I feel
like
like
2 lines.
You shouldn't have someone.
Wait, so 2 people on the
Will that fit? You can just have a line of 4 and then one person runs back.
No, but I feel like we can only get 2 lines.
2 lines? Let's do 2 lines.
Okay, so just based on what I'm hearing, we have some sort of innovation where you have 2 sets of lines, a line of 2 and a line of 3. Is that what I heard?
Actually, they should have one person getting the ball from there and then just two lines of 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's not enough
And then
space.
one person
There
right
is-
But they
here.
can only hold one ball at a time.
Yeah.
They can't hold
So
Yeah,
just
but 4
this
is
is
really
separate.
fast.
One line
One
lines
starts
two.
to go and beat the 2 short.
So no, you two. I'm in line with you. You're
Not
on-
necessarily, they just
and
can, like,
she's
shoot
over
it.
here,
It's way
and
too
we
long.
keep passing to her, and she puts it in.
10 feet.
So you and I are
I
on
don't know
line.
how to do this.
Then-
So I'm loving this right here, this employee interaction, trying to figure out how to do things better.
As a consequence,
Management is here looking at the employees, just criticizing them.
All
This is
groups
great.
pass to Sophia.
Yes.
Okay,
I
So-
don't know where it
a couple things. Out of bounds. Still out of bounds.
This doesn't seem like it's gonna fit.
Still out of bounds. Okay, very good.
I'll just do one more one.
No. One whole line and I'll just run alone.
No, that's gonna be way.
Gotta stay in bounds. If you fall out of bounds, I can't count it.
One
I'm
thing.
skinny.
How about you just,
You
let's
can't-
just go parallel?
They're
You
not
can't
that
hit Sophia
skinny.
when she walks over there too.
So what should we do?
How about you just be a?
I'll give you 10 more seconds, but we gotta start the workday soon.
No, just do it. Just do it. If it doesn't matter. If it doesn't work.
Just
We're only gonna
stay
pay.
there. Keep
All right,
that guy
So-
can try a little bit better for me.
we'll start working in 3, 2, 1, go.
I thought you were going one. You're going That's gonna be nice.
So why are you handing it to me?
He's too small.
All right, that's it.
That
Not
was
gonna count
totally
that
it.
last one. Not gonna count that last one. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
Looks like when we hired that 5th worker didn't really help us. In fact, that 5th worker may have been getting in the way a little bit. I mean, even bending the rules. I saw Siddharth doing a little bit of a dance on the orange line here. Okay, but let's take a look at our marginal product. It's the first time that we've seen our marginal product actually become negative. And if we take a look at our average product has fallen all the way to 2. All right. I would probably say that 5 is sort of the upper limit of what's safe in our business. I think if we tried to add too many more people, it wouldn't feel safe anymore. I'm like looking at you, you're like skirting the lines of our factory. And it's tough. But what's going on over there? Like, why did we experience this drop off in product? I bet you could see it. It was very clear. But go ahead, Callie.
More is not better, so but it starts to come out. Like maybe the most beneficial possible, and if you want more of that, then it's decreasing.
Yeah, so you kind of had this optimal, I guess, level, or like this maximum level where once you hit 4, you maxed out at 11 total products produced. And anything beyond that, you really started to see those workers not really even helping each other, but you saw like they were getting in the way. And part of the problem is because we had this fixed size factory, and I was saying you gotta stay in bounds, and we're getting in the way of each other. That's hurting our ability to produce. What else? I mean, it's not even just the physical aspect to it, but the mental too, right? There were some disagreements among our employees about how to optimally decide how to do the job correctly, right? And that disagreement might have also led to a little bit of inefficiency as well, because someone wanted to do something one way, the other group might have wanted to do something a little bit differently. But you notice that once you start adding all of these workers, it really start to get in the way of each other, especially because of this problem where the size of our factory is fixed. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk through the remainder of the questions here on this worksheet. So what pattern do we observe for marginal product? What pattern do we observe for marginal product as we hire more workers? And this is actually a 2-part answer. What do we see in the beginning, and why do you think that happens? So with our first few workers, what did we observe with marginal product, and why did that happen? Any thoughts? Take a look what's happening to marginal product. You can see it's increasing, right? It's going from 2 to 3 to 4. Why is that happening? Yeah, Aditya.
You're still like in your benefit until you hit your LDMP or LDMP, I guess.
Okay, so you're talking like law of diminishing marginal something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So you're still benefiting in the beginning. Each worker is giving you more and more benefit to start off. And you kind of saw that. I think it was Ford and Dilsher. They were working together. They were kind of almost splitting the distance of the factory a little bit, which was able to make them produce more product. And then you saw that also with worker number 3, right? They were able to sort of fit a certain portion of the factory. Another way to think about it is that they each had their own specialty, right? Someone, their sole job was to pick up the balls and hand them off. Someone was sort of the middle person that was meant to take and hand it out. And someone was the placer. Someone only had the job of taking and placing it into the box. They each had their own specialty. Can any of you think of any real life industries where individuals have their own specialties and that lifts up the overall production of the entire business? Think about it. I bet there's tons of examples. You just gotta think about it. Yeah, Lady Lucia.
Construction?
Yeah, like construction. Right? When it comes to construction, not everyone is building the entire house themselves. You have some people that are responsible for pouring the foundation. Other people are putting up the studs on the walls. Other people are doing painting. Guess what? If one person had to do all that, you probably wouldn't have that many houses. But they split the difference by having their own specialty. What else? What else? Aditya.
Fast food or
Yeah.
any restaurant.
Yeah, any restaurant in general, right? Instead of one chef having to do all the prep, all the cooking, all the buying of the ingredients, you have multiple chefs with their own specialties, right? Like if we think about Gordon Ramsay again and Hell's Kitchen, right? We see that some chefs specialize in doing the proteins, others do the garnishes, others do the soups, whatever it might be. Everyone has their own specialty. And as long as Gordon Ramsay's not yelling at them saying how bad of a job they're doing, they're probably pumping out more product than they would on their own. So what we are seeing initially, and in our example between workers 1 through 3, is that the marginal product is increasing. And the reason why that might be happening is because of teamwork. Is because of specialization. It's because the workers are all able to have just one task that they're really good at doing. Right? Think about Henry Ford when he developed the assembly line. Every worker is not responsible for building out the entire car anymore. You get good at one task. You specialize in that one task, which allows the company as a whole to pump out more stuff. Okay, so does everyone understand that first part of the pattern? Now the second part. Now this is something that we are familiar with from previous lessons. By the time we hit worker number 4, something has changed. And no, it's not because Aditya was a bad worker. Aditya was a great worker, for sure. But you started to observe something happening along the production line. Right? There was like a little bit of time that has to happen from one handoff to the next. And in some cases, the workers were starting to get into the way of each other. I mean, there was still overall better product, like you were able to produce more, but the rate is starting to slow. And Aditya mentioned, it's kind of like the law of diminishing marginal something. And he's right. The marginal product starts to decrease because of something known as the law of diminishing marginal returns, LDMR, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But this is basically saying, look, as we hire more and more workers, if we have a fixed factory size, or if something about our business is fixed, we're eventually going to run into this problem where the workers start to get into the way of each other, where the workers aren't able to produce as much marginal product as before. That the benefits of specialization, each worker being able to do what they're best at, eventually reaches a halt. And you kind of saw that towards the end when we hired our 5th worker, right? You notice that although Sophia wasn't like actively hurting the company, which she wasn't, she was actually helping. Every time a ball got handed to her, she was putting it in the box. The problem was there just wasn't enough room. And there's like a lot of extra friction now because of what's happening in that factory. So that's what we call the law of diminishing marginal returns. Okay? Now, the last question that I want to ask you to kind of wrap up this activity is with question number 4, the relationship between marginal and average product. Okay, so if you look at the table, you will notice that the marginal product and the average product seem to be moving in some way in relation to each other. Can any of you pick out what's happening? Like, what is going on here with our marginal product and our average product? Yeah, Carrie?
We have the direct relationship.
Yeah, it seems they almost have like this direct relationship with each other, that when one is increasing, the other is decreasing. Like, you can kind of see that. Now, it's almost exactly a direct relationship. Almost. But I want to kind of tell you, we're going to go in a lot more detail about this in the next few classes. But I want you to think about an analogy to this marginal and average. The analogy is with your grade point average, your GPA, that number that you care oh so much about. Your GPA is an average of all of your previously inputted grades. Now, let's say it's report card time, and Mr. Luzardo puts in your semester grade. That is your marginal grade. That is your next grade that gets input into your report card. So let's say you're currently sitting on a 3.7. You get an A in this class, you get a 4.0. What happens to your average? It gets pulled up. The marginal can pull up your average. But what if you don't do so hot in this class? What if you get a 3.0? Well, that marginal is going to pull down your average. The marginal seems to be pulling up and pulling down the average. And that's kind of what's happening here. Notice that when the marginal product is 3 or above the average, it's pulling it up. When the marginal is above the average, it keeps pulling it up. But as soon as the marginal dips below the average, it starts pulling it down. And as soon as it dips below the average, it starts pulling it down. So the relationship that we're going to learn between the marginal and the average is that the average follows the marginal, or the marginal pulls the average towards it. That's a pretty cool and interesting dynamic. But you can see here, as the workers become more productive due to specialization, it makes everyone better. The average increases. But as soon as they start getting in the way of each other, notice what happens. The average starts to fall. Okay, so that's the basic gist behind the production function, or an activity that introduces it, because it helps you understand how hiring more workers can influence how much output you can pump out. Eventually, there comes a point where hiring more workers doesn't contribute beneficially to your company anymore, and in fact, it might even hurt you. That you just have way too many workers and they're getting in the way of each other. Okay, so everything kind of makes sense from that activity. We're going to talk about a couple key formal points today, and then we'll wrap up.